mistakes. You can't tackle everything at once, so it's just overwhelming. It's a case of first step one is journaling. It's trying to figure out what's my biggest mistake, what causes me the most harm. And it's like, well, I risk 20% of my account on a trade. Well, quick win. Let's turn it down.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another We Are Funded Trading Plus episode. In today's episode we are joined with Simon and James, the founders of Funded Trading Plus, and we are going to talk about the habits of unsuccessful and successful traders when it comes to prop firms and funded trading. There's no better place to start than talking about the mistakes that new traders make when it comes to the prop firm space. So I thought it'd be good to start with James and maybe just talk about a few of the mistakes that we do commonly find within new traders within the industry.
Yeah, I mean, speaking from a sort of data perspective, I think there's a clear correlation between traders who kind of trade short term and kind of like high lot size, so over leveraging short term trades. That would be kind of my main area where I see that a lot in the data.
So you see over leveraging. What do you reckon the main reason is that traders over leverage to start with? Is it like a psychological point of view, or is it just want to get rich quick kind of vibe? Or
I think it's about them trying to want to kind of pass the test as quickly as possible. So kind of like kind of get rich quickie type thing. But yeah.
I think you think like we've got millions of trades, probably tens of millions of trades in our database from hundreds of thousands of traders, hundreds of thousands of accounts. I'm not sure of the exact number, but an incredible data set. We even employ a data scientist whose sole job it is to try and make sense of that and pull out sort of cause effect correlation, in order for us to be able to potentially monetize the data in our trades ourselves. And James is absolutely right, and it's not rocket science stuff. It's stuff you've heard about with trading. I think one of the big issues with funded trading is there's very clear goals and very clear milestones. In case you buy an evaluation account, you don't want to be trading your evaluation account forever, don't you? You want to get to that funded stage. So the temptation is to quite rush that. And also the same with payouts as well, because we do our day one payouts. That's sort of double-edged sword. We want to give. I saw no good reason to deny traders, whenever they wanted a payout or set any barriers for that. So we allow them to choose and do a day one payout. But at the same time, it can encourage people to rush because it's like, if I get this trade, then I can do that. And we know, and I see just from trading education background and stuff, when traders are like Discord saying, when I've passed, when am I get my funded account? I need to trade this news event or whatever. I know they're in trouble and they're not going to be the people who most likely succeed.
Well, you touched upon it a little bit there, but you mentioned rules, and I'm just thinking, do more rules make a better trader, or does the more rules sort of like make it harder for the trader to actually succeed in the market?
Depends on the rules.
Yeah, it depends on the rules.
If you have consistency rules, then that encourages the type of behavior that is more likely to make that trader succeed. But people don't like consistency rules.
People don't like
they don't want to be restricted. Whether there's a good reason for that or a bad reason for that, I don't know. But I would assume encourages bad behaviour.
It does, because encourage. Like, I'll give you another good example is leverage. Now, we only offer a maximum of 30 to 1, 2 to 1, 10 to 1, 20 to 1, 30 to 1, depending on the platform and the instruments. But people are like, well, I want 100 to 1. It's like, no, 100 to 1 means you're going to blow up quickly because traders misuse leverage. In fact, that's why leverage was limited across Europe during a review that's very boring I'm not going to talk about, because they found that, the more leverage brokers gave, the worse outcomes for traders. So we're saying we're doing this for you as a favour, which I think people have mainly accepted, and we're seeing other firms lower the leverage as well. But when you're doing that with other rules and stuff, you've got that balance between what people want, the freedom to be able to trade how they want, net restrictions and ways you're doing things that would actually benefit them as well. So it's a tricky balance to make sometimes.
No, it's really interesting. I'm just thinking, is there any correlation between, for example, the style of trader, like the time frame that traders execute on? Is there any correlations we find there from if a trader who trades execute on the 1 minute time frame, or a trader who executes using higher time frames, 4 hour, 8 hour? Is there any sort of information we can gather from both styles of trading?
Well, I can't tell you specifically which time frames traders trade because we don't necessarily record that data. But if we look at it from the basis of how long they're in the trade, as I mentioned before, the longer term the trade, the more likely they are to succeed or pass on evaluations and succeed with consistent payouts. So if you've got a 10-second, 20-second, 1 minute trade on gold, those trades tend to go wrong more of the time than the trades on gold that are an hour, 4 hours, even up to a couple of days in some instances.
I think it triggers a psychological tilt as well, because you're doing everything in this. You've got this cycle of trading, haven't you? You open, you trade, it either goes in your favour, it goes against you. And then you've got the psychological problems. Like, let's say the trade goes against you and it really annoys you and you're tempted to move your stop, you're tempted to, do things like that. Whereas if you're on a 1 minute time frame and it goes against you instantly, you can end up moving your stop really quickly. Whereas if you've got a few hours to think about it, you can be like, right, I don't need to make a decision now and go for a walk and chill out. You can come back and make that rational decision and maybe cut the loss or take the loss. And you're in a better state of mind. You can choose when to deploy the action based on your state of mind. Whereas if you're in a 1 minute time frame trade and it goes against you and you take a very quick loss, the temptation to revenge trade is really, really quick as well. So it's almost like a tightrope. The longer term time frames, you've got a lot more, a much wider rope. On the shorter time frames, you've got a very, very thin rope, and the margin of error is a lot smaller. So I think that's a big reason for it as well.
Do you believe anybody can become a trader, or does it require a special personality?
I think everyone has got the capability to be a trader, but I think you've definitely got to work on every single person. It doesn't matter where you're from, what your background is. Psychology is a core fundamental foundation for good.
Well, people, the problem is you go on about psychology all day and there's about 1,000 things, but you've got to treat it as a complex skill. The analogy I always used to give was you don't sit in an aeroplane and think you're a pilot. It is, but that's what traders do. You think you open a trading account and you're a trader, and it's like, no, you've got a complex set of skills. And Steve Ward, the trading psychologist, talks about this a lot, where it's a complex set of skills that you need to develop, and because of the deceptive simplicity of it, you think it's just very easy to do, because it is just buying and selling, but it's a lot more complex than that. We can go on to talk about the things that winning traders do as well, which is always a lot more positive way to frame it.
Yeah, it's true. I was going to ask about successful traders. I'm just thinking, what sets them apart, successful traders to non-successful traders? Is it psychology? Is that the main thing that sets good traders from bad traders apart?
Yeah, risk management as well. They keep themselves in the game. The old rule number one, capital preservation, rule number two, rule number one, isn't it? So even if you're having a bad day and you're making mistakes and you've got like 3 or 4 losing trades in a row, you don't want that to risk your account, your drawdown parameters. You want to be able to stay in the game as well for when you have your more favourable sequence of winners. So it's not about strategies. So sometimes people say to me, we're not restricting strategies, just sometimes just turn your risk down. Instead of 5 lots, make it 2.5 and you've got twice as many trades. It's like, why would you not want to stay in the game longer?
Yeah, because I've read something once, and it's just a study on 2 traders with the exact same strategy, but like because they've got different personalities and the emotions, like some traders can't see their trade. So for example, the first 5 candles on the 1 minute chart are in your favour. As soon as that first down candle turns, that trader's turning the trade off. Yeah. But then the other trader who's got that psychological difference in them could let the trade run. Do you know that I find that super interesting? I'm just sort of thinking it's psychology, it's emotion. That's like the emotional side of psychology, isn't it? It can be difficult to
It is. It's very challenging. It's very challenging to do that. But I think, the prop firm accountability is really important. So you've got a set of rules. You've got people looking at your trades and things like that. Whereas if you just do it by yourself, you can go on and do anything you want. But no, the better traders, if I could nail it down to some key takeaways, it's probably, they're generally on longer term time frame. They're managing the risk and taking a lower lot size. They're not rushing their evaluations. They're not rushing to snatch payouts. And they've got a much more longer term view of trading. And I think, and again, practical advice, how can you feel it? If you're feeling like you've got itchy fingers, you're like, oh, there's a news event, I need to be sat here, and you're worried about missing it out, and and there's a move in the market that you wish you'd gone and you're regretting it. That's all very amateur mindset, whereas the professional and the successful funded trader is going to be like, well, it'll come again. The market's always going to move. There's always going to be opportunities. It's an endless flow. You don't need to be on top of every single one. I'm sort of flowing into Mark Douglas type speech here, another famous trading psychology, but it's all stuff that's embedded in my brain from taking thousands and thousands of trades myself.
How do you think traders get rid of bad habits and start to form good habits? For example, if I'm the trader who's just built up these bad habits over time of wanting to over risk, blowing accounts, averaging into trades when I shouldn't be, or moving my stop losses, how do I as a trader stop that?
Trade in journals,
Journaling
what you're doing and then looking back and reviewing what you've done and recognizing the mistakes that you made, recognizing that you've made emotional mistakes, and the more that you do that and stare that in the face, the better and more likely you are to not do it in the future.
Yes, and I think that's great. So you got to have that objective sort of overview of where of sort of trying to capture where you are things. You just sort of break it down into give your trader basic score 1 to 4. I'm not going to go into details of where it would be, but discipline win, discipline loss, undisciplined win, undisciplined loss. So I literally just went into exact detail of what they were. But But it's just, you've got to break it down. You've got to think, what's your most egregious mistakes? You can't tackle everything at once, so it's just overwhelming. It's a case of, first step one is journaling. And it's trying to figure out, what's my biggest mistake? What causes me the most harm? And it's like, well, I risk 20% of my account on a trade. Well, quick win. Let's turn it down. If you can keep your account for 100 trades, you're going to get the best education and experience from that. And then you can get more nuanced. Okay, I'm losing money on crypto all the time, but I'm making money on indices. So maybe I focus on indices. What am I doing differently? And you can really start to coach yourself and break it down into bite-sized pieces and try and get rid of the most egregious, horrible things and then more nuanced things. It's a very, very simplistic overview. We can go into more detail maybe another time, but that's the starting point.
Yeah, I think accountability is such a big one, because you mentioned trading journals, and how hard is it for a trader to make like terrible mistakes on the day, for example, take 5 trades that they knew they shouldn't have. They don't journal that, and they just sort of, that stays in the head, doesn't it? But I suppose the other way around, if they do journal it, can they talk to other traders? Can they come into our Discord and say, look, I've made a mistake today, like, what can I do differently? Do traders need other traders around them, or can they do it by themselves?
I think it helps not to be isolated, I would imagine.
It does, yeah. It helps not to be isolated, but don't be on like all these dipshit forums where everyone's a multimillionaire or lying. It just again, as I've said on the podcast, if it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. But the Discords are very good. You get people saying I'm failing, I'm struggling, and there's a degree of honesty. Whereas you go on some trading forums and magically all the best traders in the world happen to coincidentally be there, and it's just nonsense. And that can make you feel bad, because it's like, well, everyone else is succeeding. How am I messing up? So it's trading's challenging, and anyone who says otherwise is a liar.
Yeah, one of the things I used to do is, and I've heard this work for a number of traders, is to create your own set of rules that kind of like lay out the game for you. So for me, I could be quite emotional when it comes to trading. So I basically I had a list of rules, and one of the rules was that if it became too emotional, I would stop trading for that day, or I would take an hour or 2 break, or whatever it might be. And I found that as long as I followed my rules, you're never going to follow the rules 100% of the time, but because you're following them the majority of the time, that just gives you that edge that just makes you kind of profitable.
So you're saying having a trading plan is pretty much essential for every trader?
Yeah. And it sits outside of the strategy, like Simon's trying to allude to it. It's the psychology and emotion as well. So having rules on how you engage or disengage.
And know your personality as well. When I used to do the live trade room, Michael, one of the founders, used to do the morning session, partly because I didn't like getting up early. I kind of hate mornings. Which is why I'm so glad have such a great community in the US, so we can anyway lay in. But I would always do the US session, so that would start at 2:30 p.m. UK time, and I'd have an hour and a half, 2 hours of extreme focus, and that's it. I was done. I knew when I was done, no matter what the outcome was, if it was a losing day, winning day, I wasn't going to start chasing stuff, because I know my personality, that's my level of concentration and focus, and after that I'm burnt out and I'm going to make dumb decisions. So knowing your own person, just because what one person does to find success isn't necessarily what you want to do.
No, you touched upon something really interesting there. You said main focus was from 2:30 for an hour and a half. I think we don't speak about this enough, but you don't need to be in front of your screen or in front of your computer, your trading setup for the whole day, every session. So it's hard for traders to balance working full time and trading part time. And I think it's important to say, like, as long as you can give yourself 1 to 2 hours every day and sort of build data around your trading session.
Or you jump onto a longer term time frame before you work.
Yeah.
I could talk about this shit all day, unfortunately, but I'm boring on to death. But it is a case of, if it's quality over quantity, because most jobs, you're rewarded for the amount of time that you're there. And when we start with trades, like I'm in front of the screens 12 hours a day, I don't know what's going wrong. And it's like, well, you have to adopt a different mindset. I'm not talking about laptop on the beach, 5 seconds a day bullshit. I'm talking about, like, it's a case of it's quality over quantity. You need to make a handful of the highest quality decisions, not quantity. So for me, I could do that in the high volume session of the US. For other people who may have your 9 to 5 job, who may be on their H4 daily time frame, it's a case of setting alerts, setting alarms, or probably orders at that level, and just making a handful of high quality decisions every week, and then just leaving it alone. Again, in most jobs, leaving stuff alone isn't the right thing to do. So that's another skill set. It's like you need to leave stuff alone and just let it flourish.
Yeah, I think we've got loads of good actionable steps. I mean, finding what style of trader you are, what time frames best executing on, being organised as well, isn't it? Because we do get that image off social media that you can just turn up to your screen, place a few trades, go home.
On the beach.
You've got to be productive, you've got to be efficient with your time, haven't you?
In my case. We should get Steve Ward on maybe on a podcast at some point.
Let's do it.
I've interviewed him before, and he would give some brilliant advice for traders. I wonder if they'd like that, if anyone...
Yeah, let us know in the comments,
let
guys.
us know. If you know Steve Ward, you've read his book Bulletproof Traders, let us know in the comments. I might be able to trick him on.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
All right, guys, thank you for watching. If there's any content you do want to see more of, then do let us know in the comments. We do read them all, and we thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.